Okay, Tracy, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Joint Committee meeting at the Swansea Bay City deal on the 10th of February 2022. In the absence of Councillor Rob Stewart, who is the chair of the Joint Committee, we do need to elect a chair pro tem for this morning's meeting. So can I ask for nominations for the chair pro tem from amongst the deputy chairs, please? Can I have somebody nominated and somebody to second that, please?
Can I come in? I got my hand up. Can I nominate Emlyn, please?
Okay, and is that seconded?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All in favour? That's unanimous. Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Tracy, for that, and thank you, colleagues. The first item, as you see on the agenda, is apologies for absence, and obviously you've gathered already that our chair has apologised because he can't be with us today. He's on other business, so we'll note that Rob has apologised for his absence this morning with us, and I'm happy to chair in his absence. The second item on the agenda is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. We all have a responsibility and the Code of Conduct to declare verbally any personal interest that we might have in relation to any item that appears on the agenda today. And I'd ask that you indicate, if you do have a declaration to make, what agenda item you have a personal interest in, as well as the specific nature of the interest that you're disclosing. If an interest hasn't been declared at the start but becomes known during discussions, it'll need to be declared when that interest becomes apparent to you. You also need to repeat that declaration at the commencement of the relevant item on the agenda, as well as indicating then whether or not you'll be withdrawing from the meeting during consideration of that item. Once you've declared your interest during the relevant agenda item, an officer will place you in the virtual waiting room and you'll be called back to the meeting once the debate has concluded. So if I can ask you now, if you do have any personal interest, that you raise your hand function on the toolbar, and I'll call you in if you have a declaration to make. I don't see any hands being raised, so thank you for that. We'll move on. The third item on our agenda is to approve and to sign the minutes of the previous meeting as a correct record, and that's the minutes of the Joint Committee meeting that was held on the 9th of December last year, 2021. You have the minutes before you. Can I have, please, a proposer and a seconder? Thank you, David, for proposing. Yes, thank you. That's seconded. Diolch, Ted. So it's been proposed and seconded. There are no actions from the PMO or from myself on that one. So it's been proposed, been seconded. Can you please show voting members that you approve? Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to item number 4, which is announcements from the chair. I don't have any announcements to make under that item. Item 5 is public questions that should be submitted to the Democratic Services in Swansea no less than noon on the working day prior to the meeting yesterday, and questions relating to the agenda. There are no public questions. No. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 6, which is the Swansea Bay City Deal Portfolio Quarterly meeting, and Phil is going to present for us. Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, I'll give you an overview of the quarterly report, which is in the full pack of documents that's been published. So first off, if I give you a quick overview of the 9 programmes and projects making up the portfolio, the Swansea Waterfront project, the Swansea Arena, has now partially handed over, with full handover due this month. 71-72, the Kingsway Development, is now on site and under construction, and the Innovation Matrix project is progressing towards the planning application, which is anticipated in the first quarter of this year to be submitted for consideration by the respective authority. In relation to Pembroke Dock Marine, Pembroke Dock Infrastructure has commenced construction and is ongoing engagement with the sector. PDZ has commenced procurement activities and the scoping activities for the offshore surveys, which are due to commence in mid-summer of this year. The Meta facility has delivered further deployments and have undertaken more engagement with the sector, and further deployments are planned throughout the early part of this year and into the summer. And the MEIS programme, the Centre of Excellence, is working towards completion of the collaboration agreements with the Welsh universities, and that is again due in the first quarter of this year. In relation to digital infrastructure, digital infrastructure has progressed well with the recruitment and pre-delivery activities, and the procurement strategies are being finalised for the capital projects, along with the review of the appropriate additional funding. So they are seeking from various streams additional funding to improve the benefits that could potentially be delivered by that scheme. Sport and innovation, low carbon growth. The technology centre has been now completed and is, to all intents and purposes, ready for tenants. Switch is ongoing, and sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. And the design and build process has been commenced. The wider projects that sit under low carbon are in the process of finalising their funding agreements and continuing with the wider procurement activities. Enterowell have now appointed a management contractor to support the authority in delivery of the scheme, and have appointed the designer for Zone 3, with commencement on site of Zone 1 very early in this year, also due imminently. In relation to Aregin, Phase 2 sector analysis has been completed, and the portfolio office and the university are working together on the next stages of the strategy for delivery. Swansea University Campuses project, the business case was approved in December, so that's the final business case of the 9 programmes and projects now approved at ministerial level. So we now have a full suite of approvals from the government, meaning that the whole portfolio is now in delivery. And phase 1 of the project is moving towards their commencement and their procurement activities. Homes as power stations, the key update for them is the progression towards the agreement of the regional funding agreements, and once those are bottomed out, the establishment of the supply chain fund and the financial incentive scheme will be implemented. And the skills and talent programme, the skills barometer is due to complete in February, which is this month, and once the barometer is complete, it'll allow the delivery team to progress with developing the skills and training programs, with a gateway review planned for March and April of this year. If I then move on to the integrated assurance and approval plan for the portfolio, the key highlight there is that all of the programmes and projects and the portfolio have now undertaken various gateway reviews, and across the board the general delivery confidence assessment is amber green, with more leaning towards the amber green there, which is a good place for us to be in, given where we are with delivery and given where we are as a portfolio. And then we've got 2 programmes and projects anticipated doing further gateway reviews in the coming months. That's Egg in phase 2 in April, May of this year, and the Waterfront Digital District will complete their gateway 4/5 in May of this year once that is fully completed. Moving on then to the portfolio risk management. So we have still have 3 red risks on the portfolio. One is the increase in the cost of construction, or the potential increase in the cost of construction. And in order to fully understand that, we have been working with the leads, the project leads, to assess the potential impact through a dedicated construction impact assessment, and that should be available to the next committee. It's going to be completed by the leads as their next round of reporting, which will come in the next few weeks. The potential changes to the Technical Advice Notice 15 is also currently still a red risk, which is the potential implication of NRW's change to the flood maps. And we're working with colleagues across Wales to ensure that is resolved, and that planning policy is appropriate, and that the portfolio infrastructure elements meet all of the requirements of the potential TAN 15 developments. And then the final red risk currently on the portfolio is potential slippage in delivery of programs and projects, and that's actually, it's linked to a new risk as well. So if I just move on to the new risks, so there's 8 new risks that have been identified in the quarter. One is the calculation and monitoring of gross value added. This is just a discussion between the programs and projects portfolio and the governments to ensure that we are reporting accurately on what's required in relation to GVA. There's a risk being raised, and it was due to a turnover of staff, not in a delivery partner, but in a key regional partner, as in one of the telecoms companies, and it's just a risk of potential turnover of staff in the private sector. And the portfolio engagement and investment framework is working to combat that and ensure that there's no implications there should partners who will sit outside the city deal have any variances in their resources. There's been a reported reprofile for the year in regards to the investment, and we're running at a roughly 9 to 10% movement in that, and that's currently being looked at in relation to a wider reprofile following the baselining exercise for the investment of the portfolio done in the previous quarter. And moving on, there's a new risk being raised, that potentially the assurance framework, which has been briefed before, doesn't come to fruition, and that the requirements for assurance become unmanageable. But to all intents and purposes, that is moving in the right direction. The framework has been presented to various boards and to Welsh and UK government colleagues, who are all content with the approach that's being taken, and that should be finalised in the coming weeks. And there is the other potential risk worth noting that was new in the last quarter, is that there's potential for some of the joint committee agreement updates that would be deferred slightly longer than was originally anticipated, but those are now being worked on, and that all of the audit requirements for updates to the joint committee agreement will be implemented as soon as possible. And then if I move on to the COVID impact assessment, the summary within the documentation shows that in the last quarter, the total red risks, the total risks associated with COVID, allocated red in the COVID risk assessment, not red risks for the portfolio, has decreased slightly again. That is obviously because of we are now in full delivery, and it takes away some of that uncertainty, along with the fact that some of the key schemes that were on site are now coming to completion. It is expected that the COVID impact assessment may go up and down for the life of the delivery period as more schemes move into delivery on the ground. In relation to the portfolio action plan from the Gateway Review, there was 4 actions and recommendations from the review. 3 of those have now been completed. The only item outstanding or are being dealt with, the only item outstanding is the implementation of project management software to assist in the management of the programmes, projects and portfolio, and we are hoping that will be implemented within the next 2 to 3 months. The procurement process has taken slightly longer than was originally envisaged on that. And then finally into benefits realisation for the portfolio. As of October reporting, we have now started to record and we have annualised the portfolio level benefits, and we are working with the leads to annualise the wider programme and project benefits. But just to give overline or headline figures on the portfolio, we are now currently looking at, by the end of this financial year, having invested roughly £160 million into the delivery. We will have created in excess of 600 jobs. It was running at around 500 when this was actually prepared, and the contribution to GVA from the calculations within the business case will be around the £60 million mark back into the local regional economy. And that is as brief of an update on all of those documents as I can give, Chair.
Thank you for that, Phil, for the report, quarterly report, as well as the appendices attached to that, and taking us through those as well. I have a question or comment from David. David,
just a comment, Chair. Obviously, on the updates, whether you've noticed or not, but today Bombara in Pembrokeshire has announced a £3.5 million investment from the private sector. So it is obvious what we're doing. It is doing good into industry, in the community, and I think what we set out to do was to attract private investment as well as get the grants from governments and whatever. And I think that is today, with that announcement of £3.5 million by what I think is Mitsui, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, apparently, that they're investing in wave technology. So I think it's a good thing for Swansea Bay City deal.
Thanks, David. I wasn't aware of that, but thanks for highlighting it to us, because, as I say, it is vital, and it's good to hear that that's happening. Thank you for that. Appreciate that, David. Any other comments or questions to Phil on this? I don't see any hands being raised. Tracy, I think this is for noting, isn't it? So if I'm right, Tracy, yeah.
It is for noting, Chair. Yeah. It might be worth taking a short vote on it. I think all the reports are for voting on.
Right, okay. Thank you, Tracy. We'll do that then. Can I have somebody to propose then? Thank you, David.
I'll propose, yeah.
Thank you, Ted. So voting members, can you please show, if you will, that you're in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Phil, for the report. We move on to item 7, dear Phil, to item 7, which is the Swansea Bay City deal, the quarterly financial monitoring, Chris, and that's an update on the latest financial position of the Swansea Bay deal. Again, Chris, all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this report is in 2 parts. The first part is the Joint Committee and the PMO Budget Monitoring Report, and the second part is the summary and the investment position on the 9 schemes. So if I take the first part of the report, which is actually referring to Appendix A, and it just really summarises really the financial position of the various components of the ongoing budget. The Joint Committee and Accountable Body is slightly underspending and indicated a variance by the end of the year of 37,000 against a spend of 155,000. The Joint Scrutiny Committee function indicates a spend of 21,000 with a variance of 7,000. And then the Portfolio Management Office, a spend of 569,000 with a variance against the original budget of 179,000. There are various components that have actually contributed to this variance, and you know, they include the fact that actually there is things like no room hire, no subsistence and travelling being paid because we are still doing most of our activity virtually. Salaries are slightly down within the Portfolio Office. And obviously there has been a lack of sort of conferences and a certain amount of marketing that could have been done, which pre-COVID would have been in a slightly different position. However, the overall position is a variance of 183,000, and as you know, that is funded through 2 components: the partners' contributions and the top slicing of the City Deal projects. The top slicing of the City Deal projects is indicating quite a significant variance there, but that's to be expected because the flow of the grant funding out to the projects can only take place when the expenditure has been incurred on the projects, and due again to the timeline of delivery, that is a little bit behind schedule. So there's only been 225,000 of the 723,000 being drawn. So that actually leaves a draw on the balances that we're carrying forward of 181,000. But that will all reverse itself as the projects start moving. And as we've heard, we got one project close to completion, and we got most other projects now online or progressing. So that'll see a significant different turn moving forward. So that's the position with the overall spend currently. If we look at going back to the report, and it's page 75 of the report, if we're looking at the portfolio investment position, the investment position of the portfolio is slightly different. It's slightly up on where our original projections were. The original budget was 1.24 billion, and it looks like we're running at 1.25 billion at the moment. So that is a variance there. That is summarized, as I say, on page 75, and the detail of where the variance is, it's mainly on 2 projects. One is the Swansea Waterfront project, where there's an incorporation of WEFO funding of 500,000, and there's a small increase on the Pentra Owl project as it stands at the moment. The report does reference that actually there's a breakdown on Appendix B, but in actual fact the appendix is at the bottom of that page. Sorry, not the appendix, the breakdown is at the bottom of that page as opposed to on a separate appendix. So if you're looking for an appendix, you won't necessarily find that. So that's comparing it with the original allocation that was set in originally when we set up the City Deal. If we move on to the annual investment summary and where we are at the moment, page 76 just gives a summary of these of the spend on the projects and the commitment by the end of the financial year, that is March 2022. And you can see that there are 2 summary tables there, breaking it down between the public-private investment, 50 million pound, and it's actually then breaking the annual programme down into the individual schemes. And that is effectively the first year, not the first year, but this year, or year-to-date figures in respect of the spend on the projects. What we'll see the advancement of that now over the next couple of years and the progress back to the 1.25 to £5 billion investment. So that really summarises the current position. Nothing particularly to be concerned about, and progress is being made. So with that, Chair, I'll pass back to yourself.
Diolch yn fawr, Chris. Thank you very much for that, and for the report as well. Any questions or comments on that? Chris.
Yes, just a request really, Chris, on whether or not we're able to report on the private sector investment at these reports. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris.
Yes,
yeah.
there's in a little bit more detail. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, without any problem. Yeah, that's fine. We'll get that incorporated in the future. Reports. It's always difficult as to how much information you put out in a report that actually makes it useful and readable, but certainly we can provide some more information on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris, for the request, and Chris for the. Of course, that's a chairman's nightmare. Chris asking a question of Chris, but anyway, that's appreciate the question and the answer, Chris. Both. Yes, thank you for that. Anything else? Any other comment or question? If there isn't, then this is for approval. Can I ask, therefore, that somebody formally propose that we accept? Thank you, David, and a seconder, please. Thank you, Ted. And can we all show then, all voting members, that we approve? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So we move on to item 8, which is the apportionment of non-domestic national rates. And gosh, this takes us back at the beginning of this process. So Theresa May, one of the things we asked for as 4 leaders then was, given the ambition and the commitment around the strategy of our city deal, and the front loading that was required and the borrowing requirement as well in order to do that and get these projects up and running, was that we ask Welsh Government for retention of some of the NNDR, and what came back eventually was that we retain 50% of that, which is welcome news in terms of the borrowing requirement, and actually it worked not just for us, but it worked pan Wales, because that then was extended to the other city deals, I guess, across Wales. So that was the request at the time, and this is a report, Chris, on the apportionment of the NNDR. If you could take us through that, Diolch.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it does seem a long time ago since this conversation started on the actual funding of the city deal borrowing and getting to this point of the agreement. But we did get to a point back some years ago, 2018, I think it was, where the Minister agreed that 50% of any NNDR that accrued from the new projects that were taking place would be able to be retained as a region by the Swansea Bay City Deal region. The mechanisms at that point in time were not actually finalised in terms of how we would accommodate it and how we would implement it. And obviously this now is coming to the forefront in terms of a priority to resolve, on the basis that we've got Swansea Waterfront coming to a point where it will be operational very soon. And I think City and County of Swansea would appreciate some contribution back to some of the running costs, etc. So the Minister agreed the 50% retention, and dialogue has gone on since in terms of what mechanism would be used. Welsh Government have expressed the view that the mechanism that they wish to use is the collection of NNDR continues in the normal format, where local authorities, unitary authorities, actually collect the income and return it through the normal distribution mechanisms to the Welsh Government. And then Welsh Government want to actually release a grant on a regional basis to the region for that yield that has actually been produced, or 50% of the yield. So this report actually tries to highlight then the various options that we've looked at as colleague treasurers in terms of the way that the cash returning could be distributed around the constituent authorities. And we've actually gone through 3 options really, which is based on current yield. So where the yield actually accrues is where the actual 50% repayment goes back to. Allocation based on a city deal grant or on population. When you actually look at it from a fairness and a sense point of view, it seemed like the actual most appropriate way forward would be to do it on yield. So effectively, whilst actually we got the procedure of returning the cash value to the Welsh Government and then them redistributing it, it will come back then, if we do it on this basis, to the constituent authority where the building of whatever sort has been built and where the value has been accrued. And obviously there are some sort of challenges around that, and this is why there's a fairness around it, because some properties will be exempt within the NNDR rules, and some will not accrue as much as others. There is a table on 14, which is actually an estimate that we've done, and it's only a broad estimate as to terms of the cash values that we may be talking about. That may well turn out quite differently once the actual build has taken place. There is further discussion to take place with Welsh Government, and I have a meeting with officers in Welsh Government next week over the detail of the mechanism and how we'll actually put everything in place. But what we do need from Joint Committee is confirmation of their support over an allocation basis. You will see within the report the recommendation is, after some lengthy discussions with Section 151s, that we should go for option 1, which is the current yield. So effectively, where the NNDR accrues, that's where the actual value goes back to in terms of the grant distribution, as and when we get the distribution back from Welsh Government. Hopefully members can see the logic behind that and see the fairness and support this recommendation today.
Diolch, Chris. We welcome that. I mean, it is going back, but the discussion at the time with the then leaders was very much around current yield, as it should be, and that is what's being proposed. So thank you for that, Chris, and for the report. I'll take questions or comments. David.
Not a question, Chair, but just like to say that whilst I'd like to participate in Swansea's good fortunes at the moment, and I think it should be equally shared out amongst us all, I certainly listened to what Chris has said, and I would just support the recommendation.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Diolch. Any other questions or comments? If not, then thank you, Chris, for the report, and the proposal is very clear in it as well. So that's been put to us. Can I therefore have somebody to formally propose that, if you will, from voting David, and somebody second? Thank you, Ted. And then if can I ask voting members to please vote on that we accept that. And that is again unanimously received. Thank you very much. On item 8, which is the apportionment of the non-domestic national rates. The last item is for information, and that's the Swansea Bay City deal, the communications and marketing, and it's Heidi who's going to present this to us. Heidi.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for inviting me to the meeting to talk over the Portfolio Communications and Marketing Plan. You will have received a copy of issue 5 of the plan in your packs. The previous update was done in January 2021, and there's some key issues that I wanted to draw your attention to. Firstly, I want to run over the objectives of the plan, and that is at a portfolio level to outline the key information and I would describe towards communications and marketing to ensure that our approach is coordinated and delivered efficiently and effectively to our stakeholders. The plan includes protocols to adhere to and key activities that we'll undertake, and it's also accompanied by the Swansea Bay City Deal Communications and Engagement Schedule, which is a live document. If I talk about some of the updated sections, there's been a general text update throughout, and the order has been changed to be more logical. The media protocol has been updated due to the number of organisations involved. This has been split out into 3 areas. One which looks at portfolio level communications, regional projects and programmes, and location specific projects and programmes. Even though the entire portfolio has now been approved by Welsh Government and UK Government, I've left in the protocol for business case approvals in case new business cases are created or there's significant changes to existing cases. The use of primary stakeholder logos have been updated, which show examples of ones that have previously been approved, and that can be used as a guide. The communications and marketing activity section has also been updated. There's some new options that we can consider. We can do some feature articles, some brochures, infographics, case studies, static and digital billboard sites. We can look at competitions and community-led campaigns. We can look at forming partnerships with charities, and we'll build a bank of biographies on all key City Deal people, which can be used on the website in information packs and PR. The key communication contacts have also been updated, along with key media contacts, and the email addresses have been left out just to comply with GDPR regulations. Press and radio circulation figures have also been updated. I just want to draw your attention to the new sections in the plan. The front cover and the contents page have been added to give the plan a more professional look. And I've also added in a summary of the key projects and programmes with headline information which can be used. As we've attracted a lot of interest recently from ministers, I've added in the protocol for official visits, and I've also added in the City Deal logo guidelines. Both of those documents existed before, but they were separate to the plan. One of the key tasks I'm working on at the moment is to roll out the plan to a project and programme level. And in order to do this, I'll be creating marketing and communication subgroups. So the subgroups will, some of them previously existed for some projects and programmes before I came into post, but these will be picked up again. And they'll contain the most relevant people for communications, which I'll be working with, and there'll be a mix of people such as project managers, individuals from local authorities, health boards and the universities, and we'll be catching up on a bi-monthly basis and more regularly if there's something specific we're working on. From these marketing and communications subgroups, we'll be working on creating project and programme level communication and marketing plans. Finally, I just wanted to make reference to the City Deal communications and engagement schedule. This is a live document which goes with the plan, and it contains a forward plan of activities at a project and programme level. Thanks for your time. If you've got any queries, then please get in touch with me.
Diolch, Heidi. Thank you very much for the report and the plan. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Heidi. That's great, and I think it's a really good approach. My question to you is: Are you linking in with the region, with the Swansea Bay City region, and any plans for branding and marketing of the region as a whole?
Yeah, yes, we will be. That's the purpose of setting up the subgroups, to make sure that everything is coordinated.
Okay.
And they'll include different people throughout the region.
Okay, thanks, Chris, for the point. It's valid. Yeah, diolch, Heidi. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any hands, so I think it is appropriate that we take a vote on this, Tracy, as well. So can I ask formally then that somebody propose for us, David? Thank you. And the second, diolch, Ted. then can I ask voting members that then please to show their support and acceptance? And that once again is unanimous. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and indeed thank you for the meeting, for your contributions at the items that we've discussed, and also for your presence with us this morning. That's much appreciated. Diolch yn fawr. That concludes our meeting. Thank you one and all. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.